So the cost to fly privately is increasing. You might say, tell me something I don't know. If you fly privately, you've seen the prices increase, both for on-demand charter and for jet cards. Jet cards both with dynamic pricing and even those that give you the fixed contracted rates. I'm going to tell you how much prices have increased, where they stand right now, how the dynamic pricing programs are comparing to the fixed or capped rate programs, and what's next, plus a couple other important changes to the programs that if you fly privately, you need to be aware of. Hi, I'm Doug Gollin. I'm founder and editor of Private Jet Card Comparisons. We're a buyer's guide to private aviation services, and we're here to help you figure out which programs and which ways to fly privately best fit your needs. I want to thank you for joining me today on our YouTube channel. So the cost to fly privately, like almost everything else, is going up. So how much is it going up? We just did an analysis of the Private Jet Card Comparisons database. So we have over 250 programs in there. And we took a look at the programs that are currently selling. Some programs obviously are still on hiatus, or they have restricted options available. So we're just looking at the options that are available now that you can sell or renew with. Obviously looking at the fixed or capped rate programs, because those are the programs that give you a contracted rate when you sign up to join them. The news is, the bottom line is, that the average hourly price across all different aircraft categories since the end of 2020, since the end of the fourth quarter of 2020, when the 7.5% FET-free CARES Act, don't have to pay the federal excise tax, expired. Since that point, the average hourly rate for jet card programs are up 21%. So it's an increase of $1,799 per hour. And I think the interesting point, I went back and looked historically at some jet card programs. If you go to Wayback Machine and also into our database, if you look from like 2015 until last year, actually the beginning of last year, the jet card prices, in some cases, the providers didn't raise them from year to year. And if they did, it might have been $100 per hour. So to see an increase of $1,799, $1,799, close to $2,000 per hour in a 15-month period is significant. It's unprecedented. It's what one provider told me, crazy, but as he said, that's how the market is these days. So why are the prices of the jet cards going up? Well, it's a few things. Obviously, there's just generic supply and demand. But beyond supply and demand, there is the increased cost of fuel, and you've seen some. And part of what our price analysis does take into consideration is fuel surcharges. So you've seen a number of companies implement fuel surcharges, so that's baked into our analysis. You see the cost of maintenance going up, the cost of parts going up, the amount of time an aircraft is down for maintenance extending, the cost of ground services increasing, staff costs increasing, especially pilot costs, and especially pilot costs for entry-level aircraft. Light jets and turboprops, as you will see, are having some of the largest price increases. And they tend to be the starting point for pilots who are looking for an aviation career. And you sort of move up to larger jets or sometimes onto the airlines. So you start with turboprops or light jets. And so the price to just hire pilots at the entry level has increased just across the board. So a lot of the increase in prices, not necessarily going into the bottom line of the aviation companies, being passed on down the supply chain. Another place or another reason that the price for your jet cards or your on-demand charters are increasing is the owners of the aircraft want more money. And so a lot of the fleets that are part of jet card programs or that brokers use when you call for on-demand charter, which is chartering trip by trip, they're what they call managed aircraft. And so that's an owner allows his management or her management company to charter them out when they're not using them. And they want more money because their costs are going up too, or they also want to use those airplanes more for their use, their personal use, their business use. And so companies are having to give them more money, incentives to make them available on the charter market. So prices are going up, but it's because the costs of operating private jets are going up every place that you look. So the question is obviously, how much are the jet card, the fixed or capped rates, changing by aircraft type? And in the analysis of the private jet card comparisons database, when we looked at December of 2020, which was the low period, that was when the CARES Act was still in place and you saved the 7.5%, to the current pricing, well, the turboprops went up the most. Turboprop, the cost of chartering a turboprop in a jet card fixed capped rate program increased 47% in 15 months. At the end of March, the average price, and this includes fuel surcharges and the FET, into it was $6,564. If you went back to December of 2020, it was $4,454. So that's an increase of close to $2,000, close to 50% in 15 months. The cost to charter or to use light jets, that price was up 35%. It went from $5,600 at the end of the fourth quarter of 2020. 15 months later, end of this first quarter in 2022, light jet average capped fixed rate jet card cost $7,564. So that's a 35% increase. Again, close to $2,000. So your average capped fixed rate jet card price for a light jet is now mid $7,500 range. But the caveat is, keep in mind that if you go out and you say, wow, that's really expensive, if you go to a broker on demand charter, you're probably not going to do much better, and it could be, depending on when you want to travel, could be more expensive. So the light jets and the turboprops got hit the hardest. Midsize jets, the price for the jet cards, fixed and capped rate jet cards, it's currently $8,662 per hour, again, including FET, including surcharges if the provider has them. That's a 24% increase. Super midsize aircraft are now 11,000 on average, $11,171, 22% 15-month increase. If you went back to December of 2020, they were $9,190. So now over $11,000. Large cabin aircraft, a little less. They went up 17%, and they went up. They're right now at the end of Q1 2022. The average hourly rate for a large cabin jet was $14,173. let's compare very quickly how the fixed or capped rate program costs are compared to dynamic pricing. And so dynamic pricing, either in a membership program or if you're just booking on demand trip by trip, that's where the provider is pricing the trip based on when you call, when you're flying, obviously the type of aircraft that you need, other amenities, Wi-Fi and things like that, but where you're flying from and to, when you're flying, how far you're booking. And dynamic or market-based pricing means you call and price out a trip today, you call next week, and the price for that trip may be different because it's based on what the market has to offer at that time, versus the jet card programs with or memberships that have the fixed or capped rates. When you sign up, you get a contracted hourly rate, so you know in advance that you're paying X number of dollars per hour, and as long as you're in the primary service area, whether you're flying from Toledo to Boston or from New York to Palm Beach, you're paying that same hourly rate. So it doesn't really matter when you're flying or where you're flying, and when I say when, as long as you book before the booking deadline. And so let's take a look at how that compares. Generally speaking, before the pandemic, people didn't join jet card programs mainly because if they had the time and wanted to do it themselves, they felt that they could get better on-demand pricing, call a couple brokers, play them off against each other, do a little bit of negotiating, and they could get a better price than jet card rates. Well, that's really not the case anymore. I can tell you just in terms of new subscribers to private jet card comparisons, one of the things that I hear on an ongoing basis is, I used to do that, a couple brokers, and right now, if they can't, always get the availability or the types of planes the person wants, and the rates have increased significantly so that the jet card rates are in fact more attractive in many cases than doing the on-demand trip-by-trip flying. And we did an analysis. We looked at 12 different flying scenarios for about 4 or 5 different routes. We looked from light jets, mid-size, super mids, large cabin aircraft. And what we found is that in 7 of the 12 scenarios, the average jet card rate, using the average jet card rate for those flights, was actually lower than the lowest hard quotes, actual quotes, not just estimates, that we could get from on-demand brokers. So in 7 out of the 12 scenarios, jet card average pricing beat the lowest on demand. And when we took a look overall at those scenarios, the average jet card price for those flights, which were generally around 2 hours, was across all categories, averaged $25,744. The lowest average from the different on-demand providers was $24,894, and it went up on some days to $41,654. So the one thing I can say right now is that jet card pricing is at the low end of the dynamic, the market, and so that probably is not sustainable because whoever your jet card provider is, whether they have a fleet or whether they're going out and brokering, they still have the expense of providing the product. And so my guess is that you're going to continue to see the fixed capped rate programs increase how much they charge. Okay, so there's 2 more things you need to know about, how the programs are changing. They do impact, how you can use your fixed or capped rates. So it is important. The biggest change is the number of peak days. Before the pandemic, there were about the programs looking at the private jet card comparisons database at the end of 2019. The average number of peak days was 23.2 peak days. So about 3 weeks of peak days are mainly, the big holidays, Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving, the Super Bowl weekend, although not even for all programs. At the end of the first quarter, the average number of peak days had increased to 49. So that's a month and a half of peak days. So more peak days, as you know, peak days, longer call outs, so you have to book farther in advance, more strict cancellation terms. And then, surcharges. Not all programs have peak day surcharges, but they can range up to 100%. I'm going to put a link below to the video I did about avoiding peak day surcharge or peak day blues. The other factor with peak days is the provider can move your departure time at least plus or minus 3 hours, in some cases now 6 hours in either direction or more. So not great if you have to fly on peak days. The number of peak days have more than doubled since before the pandemic. And then the other change, maybe not dramatic, but if it affects you, it is the call out, the non-peak call out to get those contracted fixed rates. Before the pandemic, the average was 23.2 hours. So you had a bunch of programs at 10 or 12 hour call outs and then 24 hours. So the average was under 24 hours. It's now up to 62 hours. So nearly 3 days. And, for most trips and most people, 3-day call out to get a contracted rate is fine. But if you're one of those people who, the weather forecast on Thursday is bad for the weekend and you want to go someplace sunny, and you like the idea that you could call and the next day you could be flying somewhere using your jet card contracted rate, with a 24 or 12-hour call out, those are more rare. So, in addition to the price increases, longer lead time to book, especially non-peak, and more peak days where the terms are less advantageous. So far, what's the impact of all this? I did a survey with subscribers of private jet card comparisons back in February, and yes, they said that they were not happy with the price increases, but the bottom line is 92% said they were going to fly more or the same as 2021. As you know, 2021 was a record year. 2022 is breaking 2021 records so far. Of the people who responded, the subscribers who responded, 51% said that they were actually going to fly more than last year. So far the price increases don't seem to be sending any people away from flying privately. As I said, the bottom line is I think you're going to probably see more price increases. The price of the fixed and capped rate jet cards, believe it or not, is not really lined up at this point with the pricing for on-demand dynamic charters. What would be an exception? If you're flexible, you're booking a week or two in advance, and you're traveling between high demand airports where there are there's a lot of private jet activity. So you're going Teterboro to Palm Beach or Teterboro to Miami. That's the type of place that you're going to do better with on-demand pricing than the fixed capped rate jet card pricing. And that was backed up in the analysis we did of the different routes. If you're traveling from Oklahoma City to Pittsburgh, or you're traveling, in other places where there's probably going to be some repositioning involved by the providers to get the jet to you, or to the next customer after it drops you off, the jet card pricing is going to be more attractive. But that's something we also help subscribers figure out as part of the custom analysis they do. But bottom line, prices are increasing. But what's not increasing? Everything is going up these days. The good news is there's still about 40 companies selling the fixed cap rate programs. So there are plenty of choices. As I always say, the devil is in the details. The contracts for the programs, range up to 30 pages. And so, it's making sure you understand the terms of what you're signing up for. That's the key thing. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please hit the like button and please subscribe. Also, please visit privatejetcardcomparisons.com, sign up for our free e-newsletter, and learn more about how we can help you find the right private aviation solution for your unique flying needs.